Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
You are inside the GRE podcast, Get Rich Education, show number 9. I'm Keith Weinhold. Realize that most people have one substantial income stream in their life. It's from their workaday job. Most know that it's smart to have a second substantial income in case something happens to their one and only income stream, but to them that means getting a part-time job. Well, your return on time and quality of life are diminished if you have to add a part-time job. How did that really make things any better for yourself? You're trading your time for dollars again. Your work hours might increase 20%, but when you figure it out, that might cut your you time in half. Instead, when you establish a second income stream with your investment dollars and do it in something stable, substantial, and relatively passive like real estate, you've enhanced the durability of that income stream. I discussed that in GRE episode number 2, which is one of our most downloaded episodes. The show is named How to Make Money Follow You, as opposed to you following money like you do at a job. Well, today you learn specifically about how you can make money follow you in a way where you don't have to do much work for it, preferably none. Well, the way to do that without work is to get your dollars and other people's dollars working hard for you through turnkey real estate investing in a profitable geographic market. We discussed markets in the last episode. Today, I brought Terry Kerr of Memphis, Tennessee's Mid-South Homebuyers onto the show to tell you how to do just that. He's the president of arguably the premier turnkey real estate investment company in what's historically the best metro for profitability in the entire U.S. What his company does is buy distressed property, rehab the property, then they place a qualified tenant in the unit, and then and only then, once that's already done, they sell it to you so that you often have rent income from day one. Then his company even manages it for you for all the years that you own it, and nearly always in a situation where the rent income is expected to exceed the monthly expenses. That monthly positive cash flow is your income that is going to follow you wherever you go. Yes, Terry's company can make money follow you. It's turnkey, meaning it's as close to hands-off, all done for you as possible. Now, you might hear some background noise or distortion in our interview, so I apologize if any of that remains, but my excellent editor has done a lot to clean that up. So I've really been looking forward about showing you how to make money passively follow you in a more concrete way, so we'll let Terry tell you all about it. I've got Terry Kerr here on the line with me. So from beautiful and pristine Anchorage to Memphis, Tennessee, there on the banks of the Mississippi River. Terry, how did you get to be the president of a company that both provides investment property and manages those properties for investors?
Well, I kind of stumbled into the real estate business about, I've been doing it full time for 13 years now. So let's say, 14 years or so ago. I wanted a nice house to live in, and my wife and I wanted to keep overhead low, so we decided to buy a fixer-upper. I didn't have any experience in the real estate business or construction experience. Had built quite a few big skateboard ramps, so that was about the extent of my construction knowledge. But jumped in with both feet and picked out a house in Midtown Memphis, which is houses that are somewhere around 100 years old. And started rehabbing a house that had been vacant for 13 years and quickly fell in love with making ugly things pretty. So it took me about 7 months working nights and weekends to fix the house up before our family could move into the place. And I just loved it. And so my wife was cool enough and supportive to where I quit the best job I'd ever had to take a outside sales gig to try and have some flexibility so I could make a run at the real estate business. And fortunately, Memphis is a terrific place for this business, and things went well.
It is. You sure are fortunate enough to be situated in the right place there geographically. So it sounds like you really got to learn the business from the inside out, and then you got to see it later as an investor, as you were a homeowner first. So through the investor lens, what is the character of the Memphis market with respect to things like industry sectors, migration, employment, and those sort of demographics?
Memphis, fortunately, for what I'm doing, is about 50% rental. So half of the Memphis market just about is renting property. And so since the business that I'm in is selling turnkey rental investments to folks who live typically out of state, and then also buying, rehabbing, and holding for my own personal portfolio for rental, it's nice that Memphis has such a large rental population. One of the things that sort of lends itself to Memphis being a high rental city is the fact that the jobs that are here and that are available for Memphians, a lot of these jobs are blue-collar jobs. There are a bunch of them. Memphis is known as America's distribution center. And, we've got the Mississippi River, we've got I-40, and we've got a massive rail system here. And so we're situated as such in the United States to where we are the world's second largest cargo hub. We were first, now we're second. And so Memphis isn't moving. It's not going anywhere. So we've got that stability. But again, one of the things that makes us such a large, puts us in the position to where there's a very large percentage of the Memphis population that rents is that these blue-collar jobs don't necessarily require advanced education. So folks can get out of high school and jump right into a job with FedEx or UPS or something down on the river. And these jobs pay very well, but they tend to go to folks that aren't quite as educated. And education tends to mean one would be a better money manager. So long story short is a lot of folks just get out of high school and go to work at one of these outfits that provide a good income and good health benefits, but they don't necessarily think long term and end up renting property. And real quickly, if I may, Memphis has always been that way. This is not an anomaly. We've been on the river ever since we became a city, and that's not going to change.
And that's certainly an attraction. You have those sort of blue-collar jobs there that cannot be easily outsourced or automated. They are tied to that local geography. That's what distribution does. And that's one reason that for years, real estate investors really from around the globe have been zeroing in on Memphis, Tennessee. So with that in mind, how would you describe the character of the properties there that an investor is getting into? Is it more of I think we probably know it's more of a cash flow market than an equity market. And how does it look as for older versus newer properties or apartment buildings versus single family homes? What seems to work best for investors there?
Well, everyone's got their niche. And I have buddies that are in the apartment niche. They're not in the C class or D class apartment niche. That's tough. They're more in the B class apartment niche. But the returns are quite low. But these are folks that have large amounts of money that they want to invest in a B-class apartment to where maybe their return is going to be 6.5%, 7%, and they've got relationships with banks to where they're going to be able to leverage that for 20, 25 years. However, what most of the Memphis market is seeing, or what most investors that come into Memphis to invest in property are investing in single-family houses, and they're investing in houses that are anywhere from, say, $40,000 up to, say, maybe $150,000 in that price range. We sort of have identified what we call the sweet spot, whether it's for my properties personally that I'm going to hold or for the properties that we buy, renovate, and sell. We're operating in areas where the average purchase price as far as starting is going to be a property that's going to rent for $675 and is going to sell somewhere in the low 50s. Up to houses that are around the $100,000 mark. With the vast majority of the properties that we're buying, fixing, and selling, probably somewhere around in the $60,000, $62,000, $63,000 range. And what I've found, again, both for the properties that I'm keeping and for the properties that I'm selling, is that the higher you move up in dollar value, so if you're buying a house that's going to rent, let's say for $11.50, and you're paying $99,000 for it, you've got some upside as far as like maybe a tad more appreciation, but not necessarily. But the cash flows on the houses that are in that sweet spot tend to cash flow a little bit better. You can go up and you can buy a house for $200,000 and rent it out, but the taxes and the insurance and the debt service are going to be such to where you're not going to be cash flowing as well as you would if you were down there more in the sweet spot. So having said that, there's more than one way to skin the cat, but by and large, folks that are coming to Memphis to invest are looking to invest in the sweet spot.
Okay, so that sweet spot sort of starts at a rent income of about $675 for a property between 50 and 60K, and then it goes up from there to a certain threshold where it sort of peters out?
That's right.
Okay. And what are those properties typically like, square footage-wise, neighborhood-wise, and then what kind of tenant can be attracted there?
The houses that are, let's say, the $675 a month rentals are going to be anywhere from 980 square feet, and I use that number because there's a floor plan that exists here in town where a lot of builders got a hold of that floor plan back in the baby boomer days. So a lot of houses that are just under 1,000 square feet and that are going to move up to, let's say 1,150. Once you get past 1,150 square feet, you're going to be adding a half bath or maybe a full bath. And then when we have that half bath, our rents typically jump up to $695. And if there's a full bath, they're going to be jumping up to $725. Now, I will say that depends on what neighborhood you're in. But in the areas where we're like to invest, which in Memphis, it's 38127, 38128. In the more blue-collar neighborhoods where the houses they're brick, many times they're on a slab, they have aluminum windows, a lot of features that make the property easy on the pocketbook from a maintenance standpoint, from a long-term maintenance standpoint. But depending upon where you're going in Memphis, you could be renting a property that is 1,300 square feet for $1,000 a month or for $725 a month. It's just going to depend on what part of town the property's in.
Okay. So that sort of makes one wonder, with some of these homes at the lower price points, maybe 50 to 60K, where some sufficient cash flow can be generated for adequate investment, is financing available for homes at these lower amounts? I know that some banks really don't even want to bother with loan amounts, not purchase prices, but loan amounts of under $50,000. How do you advise someone that way?
Unfortunately, the lenders that we're working with have, I believe, the minimum loan amount. It's right around the $40,000 mark. So even if it's a property that we're selling for $50,000, that's not going to be a problem from a financing standpoint. Our outfit also offers in-house financing. So if one of our buyers has purchased 5 or 10 houses from us and are tapped out with Fannie and Freddie, we can finance them as well. So financing does not tend to be a problem.
All right, well, that's great news, because we talk about the benefits of leverage here, and that's really key for some people in getting started. And there really are some advantages to what you provide that some other companies can't provide. That is something I've been aware of for a while. I'm able to buy there from a company that both provides the investment properties and manages them too. So that sort of keeps the company responsible for stating a certain rent amount that you can generate for me. And then as the manager, you have to go ahead and get it for me as well. What are some of those efficiencies of you doing both of those things in-house, providing the investor property and then retaining it in your management portfolio?
One of the things that we like to talk about on our website at midsouthhomebuyers.com is how to do your own due diligence, no matter where you're buying in the United States, and how to interview essentially a turnkey seller. And one of the things that I know from experience is that it doesn't matter who someone's buying from. If you're buying a property in a market where you don't live, if you can find a turnkey seller that has a good reputation, you're much better off working with the property manager that was previously the owner of the property, which essentially is what a turnkey seller is, as opposed to finding a real estate agent, working to buy a house, trying to maybe rehab that house, then finding a property management company that wasn't affiliated with the buy, fix, and sell side. That can be tough because there will be a lot of finger pointing sometime. But if one is purchasing a property from a turnkey seller, all the accountability is under one roof. The rehabber can't point at the manager, and the manager can't point at the rehabber. And if I may, we have, as an outfit, as all turnkey sellers do, we've got a vested interest, a selfish interest in making sure that the property performs as best as it absolutely can. Because if the property performs well, the buyers are going to come back and buy more property. If someone is a real estate agent and they're selling a property, they really don't have a vested interest in how well the property performs because they're typically not in it for the long haul. So I encourage folks to do your homework, do your due diligence, ask the right questions, and feel free to go to midsouthhomebuyers.com and download a list of questions to ask any turnkey seller, and it'll help you shop anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I like to think of it in that way. Mid-South Homebuyers is sort of, in a sense, investing right alongside the investor for the long term. So with the popularity of Memphis, how is that done for your inventory? Do you still have sufficient inventory that you can offer an investor that wants to start initiating a purchase tomorrow?
Yeah, I do. I get asked that question a lot. Are you running out of inventory? There's so many people coming to Memphis to buy houses. You guys must be running out of houses. And that's not the case, and that won't be the case. And the reason is because since half of the Memphis market rents, which means half of the property available in Memphis is rental property, the fact is that people retire. We've got quite a few houses under contract right now that we're about to purchase, and we're purchasing these properties from another investor in town. And he's had them for a long time, 35 years. They did what they were supposed to do. They helped put food on his table. They paid for his retirement, and he's been cash flowing very well for a long time on these properties. Well, now he's of the age, he's mid-70s, and now he's not wanting to manage the property anymore because property management is a job. And so even though he's, in quotation marks, retired, he has a job. But these properties are paid for, so now what's he going to do? He's going to unload them, and he's going to sell all these properties. And we're not going to buy all of them because he wants too much for some of them, but we're going to buy several. And so I'm using that as sort of a case in point. People are born, people move through life, people pass away. And so whether it's buying a property out of foreclosure or buying a property from someone who has done very well and is just simply wanting to liquidate and take the cash and live the rest of their life with a bunch of cash and not having to manage property, there's just so much opportunity in Memphis from a standpoint of the availability of houses that I was buying, fixing, and selling houses before the downturn, during the downturn, and now, we're well past August of 2008. Memphis is a good, solid blue-collar town and is great for cash flow, and that's not going to change specifically because the inventory is not going anywhere.
Now, some of my listeners, Terry, aren't yet familiar with the term turnkey real estate provider or what that really means. So you buy a distressed house, rehabilitate it, put a tenant in it for an investor, and then at that point sell it to the investor. That's effectively what you're doing, right?
That is exactly what we're doing, yes.
Yeah. So once you have a tenant there, over the long term, really I advocate that investors go into states where there's a sort of landlord-tenant law locally that can be more favorable to a landlord than a tenant. So there in Tennessee, does that tend to favor the owner or the tenant more?
Oh, it definitely favors the owner. We've got to be, if not the most landlord-friendly state, one of the most landlord-friendly states. So if a tenant doesn't pay the rent, we can get them out of the property very quickly. And I learned about that from a good friend of mine who'd been in the business a lot longer than I'd been in the business. And he actually started buying houses from us. And if I may, this is sort of going back to your previous question. A lot of folks would ask, as far as a turnkey seller, they'd prefer to buy a house, fix it up themselves, and manage the property themselves, or at least buy it themselves, fix it up, and have another property management company manage the property. And one thing that I like to caution folks on is the amount of time it takes to go out, hunt down a deal yourself, kill it, drag it back to the cave, rehab it, and go through that learning curve. If someone has the time to do it, man, it can be a really fun and really profitable thing to do. However, the reason that most folks end up buying from a turnkey outfit And there are quite a few turnkey outfits in Memphis, but the reason that most folks will end up buying from a turnkey outfit is because they don't have the time to wear all the hats that it takes to learn every piece of that puzzle. And my buddy Steve, that had about 20 rental houses himself, ended up buying houses from me because he didn't have enough time in his day to continue buying and fixing properties himself. So he just started buying them from us as a turnkey seller. So essentially the value that a turnkey seller is providing is time.
Yeah, and that's of great benefit to me. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, as an out-of-area investor, which most of your investors are, I just can't imagine both the street knowledge that they would need to have and the time that they would need to take to find a decent foreclosure property. And they're probably going to get it in banged-up condition if it's been foreclosed upon, because a bank is not in business to go ahead and pretty up properties. And then after acquiring it, that investor would have to manage a number of different contractors to get that up to rehab status. And then they would have to tenant it themselves. I mean, to do all those things remotely is nearly impossible to do effectively.
It's hard even for the turnkey seller, myself, and even for my other turnkey seller buddies in town. When we were getting started, you stub your toes and scrape your knees, and it's not fun, but you sort of dust yourself off and keep on going and learn from your mistakes. So it was hard enough to do as a local guy, definitely harder to do from afar.
Yeah. So, once the investor has bought the property and now the property is in your management portfolio, what kind of ingredients make for a good property manager there in Memphis?
Communication, communication, communication. Our bread and butter is buy it, fix it, sell it, manage it, buy it, fix it, keep it, manage it, because we don't sell everything. But we are asked, if not daily, at least several times a week, we get approached. This morning I was approached by someone who is a friend of my bookkeeper and wants us to manage 3 of his houses. And I had to turn him down. And my bookkeeper's super cool, but she was bummed, but she understands why we had to turn down that business. We're in business to buy a house, fix it up, sell it, and manage it for the person that we sold the property to. And the biggest reason that folks will come to us asking us to manage their property is because they haven't been getting the proper communication from the property management company. There are a lot of plates to spin in the property management business, and unless you've got a good system, it can get away from you. There are a lot of things that we do as a property management company that are not very normal from the standpoint of, say, a typical third-party property management company. Third-party property management company would be a property management company that is not a turnkey seller. And there are several examples, but one of them that I'll say is our houses are not in rental condition. Our houses are in retail condition. So we put them in tip-top condition as a turnkey seller for the property management company to manage. And since the houses are in terrific shape, they attract the highest quality tenant for the neighborhood. In addition to that, we like to price our properties about $25 to $30 under market. So if we look and we see what the other houses that are available in the neighborhood are renting for, we like to go just below that and have a better property and slightly less rent, which is going to fill the property quicker. And then another, it might not sound like a big deal, but it's a huge deal, thing that we do that's different, is that we don't charge an application fee to people that apply. They can go online, they can apply for free, they upload their documents, it goes into our system, and Matthew and Kendall, our leasing agents, can take a peek at it and see what's missing, text them back, let them know what to do. Long story short is since we've got a real easy and free application process, we process a lot more apps. And since we process a lot more apps, we get a lot more looks and we can fill a property faster and with a better quality tenant. That costs us money to do because we've got to pay for credit checks, background checks, employment verification, criminal background checks, the whole 9 yards. But as somebody who owns property myself, before I started managing property for others, I didn't charge potential applicants for these services, and it served me well as a property owner. But when we decided to start managing property for other people, we didn't want to start charging application fees because we knew it was in our best interest not to. I use those things as just sort of small things that make a big impact. As of right now, we're 98.4% occupied. We're managing 875 houses. 98.4% is the best occupancy rate we've ever had. We hover around 97%, but that's way, way out in front of the competition. And the reason mainly is because nicest house in the neighborhood, slightly under market, no application fees, and if something breaks, we go fix it.
That's great. Well, that would tend to make a lot of sense. For something relatively minor like not having an application fee, that increases your pool of potential tenants, and consequently you get a better tenant to select in. As an investor with this communication emphasis, for properties that you're holding in your management portfolio for investors, how are repair and maintenance issues handled? And does that include properties being inspected on a regular basis even while tenants are in the unit? Or?
Well, as far as inspections go, we go out and service the HVAC system in the spring and in the fall. So we take that opportunity to go through the property, and essentially we're looking for water penetration. Water's the biggest problem. So we'll hop up in the attic and we'll check out the plumbing penetrations and the HVAC and water flue pipe penetrations and make sure there's no water. And when you're doing that, you can obviously see if there's anything else going on, critter in the attic or something like that. So, and it happens, we have squirrels and raccoons. And so, you're looking to make sure that something's not trying to get into the house or, and making sure that the furnace is serviced and the air conditioning condenser is serviced and that kind of thing. So the inspections happen just sort of organically twice a year. And as far as just your typical maintenance and communication, like I said, if something breaks, we go out and fix it. If there's an item that's over $300, then we're going to let the tenant know, or we're going to let the owner know what's up as far as, hey, you've got this repair. We need to make this repair. We give them a heads up. However, if it's an emergency, we got to just take care of business quick. If it's 100 degrees outside and the air goes out, obviously the owner of the property wants the air fixed. If there's a water heater that's busted, obviously the owner of the property wants the water heater fixed, and we've got a responsibility to the tenant. So we just rock and roll. We've got 13 in-house technicians that come into the office every single morning that help us with both our rehabs and help us with the maintenance of the rental properties. Probably the best thing that we've got going as far as long-term value that we can provide for the owners of property is the fact that our HVAC, plumbing, electrical, the whole 9 yards is all in-house. So that means we don't have to call an electric outfit. We don't have to call a plumbing outfit or an HVAC outfit. Our guys take care of it, and they take care of it not only for a smaller dollar figure per hour, but also they're fast. We've got multiple emails from owners that have properties in other markets that are blown away at how inexpensive our maintenance is. And the only reason it's inexpensive is because it's in-house instead of us having to farm it out.
Yeah, there's some great economies of scale that way, certainly. So living in Memphis your entire life and being real estate centric, I've got a question for you, and whether the answer has to do with real estate or otherwise, what kind of information and ideas would you have for a 22-year-old investing enthusiast just looking to get into any kind of investing? What would you tell them?
I'd say come to town. Hardly anybody comes to town. We kind of get our feelings hurt. We don't get to meet most of the folks that buy from us. I'm going to say 5% of the folks that we work with come to town to visit. But I'd say, come to town, put your feet on the ground, cruise around, check it out and see what you're getting into, because the more educated that you can get, the better off that you are. There are some really good turnkey outfits out there in Memphis and other parts of the U.S., and there are some that aren't so good. It's like any other industry. And so I would just encourage a 22-year-old or a 52-year-old to do their due diligence, to check out the competition. But you need to know the right questions to ask. So again, I'll encourage folks to go to our website, get the due diligence questionnaire, and use those questions to grill people. I don't care whether you're in Dallas, Atlanta, Memphis, or wherever. You got to know the right questions to ask, or you're just sort of out there, at the mercy of folks hoping that they're going to do you right.
Well, that's a smart thing to say. You've got to invest in yourself first. You don't know what you don't know. And once you know, you can ask the right questions.
Yep.
So just here, is there anything else that our listeners should know, Terry?
About turnkey sales and investment property, I will say this right here. Management is the key. You might pay an extra $5 or $6 or $7 or $10,000 for a property that you might think, oh man, my buddy got one that's pretty much the same deal and he paid 10 grand less. It's not about the $10,000 that you pay here or there. It's about the management of the property. If you can pay too much for a property, but it could be managed to success over the long term, or you could get a smoking deal on a property and it could just be managed right into the ground. So I just encourage folks to not focus so much on the brick and mortar on the property, and just understand that it's more about the management of the property than it is of the property itself. I mean, obviously you want to know what you're buying, but I would say that if someone is wanting to buy in a market where there aren't turnkey sellers, or not a turnkey seller that one is comfortable with, I would suggest finding a property manager first and then work backwards to find the property.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, hey, I really want to thank you for coming on to the show, Terry. And listeners, if you want to know more, be sure and check out MidSouthHomebuyers.com. Thanks a bunch, Terry.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it, man.
A little boom goes the knowledge dynamite there on Memphis turnkey real estate investing, dropped by Terry Kerr. Not all turnkey providers are created equal, and Terry's company is one of the good ones. The only problem with that success is that others have found out about him, and when their properties are available, they go pretty fast. So you can check them out at MidSouthHomebuyers.com. Just think about this. With only a 20 or 25% down payment that you make on a $60,000 Memphis property, even after adding lender closing costs on top of that, you might only have to put down as little as $15,000 to $18,000 to control a property that provides you with cash flow on a monthly basis. It might increase in value over time. It has a mortgage note that is paid down by your tenants. It can provide you with tax benefits, and you've still got your $15,000 or whatever of equity in the home. I'll never promise everything is going to go well and be seamless for all the years that you own a rental property, no matter where you do it. Nothing is risk-free. It's about using knowledge and a team to mitigate risk. Mid-South homebuyers even have warranties on the properties that they sell to you and manage for you. It's more than warranties on home components. If your unit is vacant 90 days, they even pay the rent to you that the tenant would have paid if it were occupied, but they've never had a vacancy of more than 45 days. I mean, this is about as easy as it gets, listeners. Memphis generally does a good job at providing investors with cash flow than they do with rapid appreciation of the overall asset itself. So it just depends on what you're looking for. You know, this is a good time to add that no guest has ever paid me to appear on the show. Likewise, I haven't paid anyone to appear on the show either. So, all right, well, hey, on the show overall here, I'm open to your feedback. Let me know what you want for future episodes. Tell us what has helped you and what you'd like more of by going onto our Get Rich Education Facebook page and sending us a message through the messenger there. You know, for example, if you want us to have a credit expert on because you need to get your credit score higher to buy an investment property or buy a home for yourself, we'll effort to not just get a qualified guest onto Get Rich Education, but to get the best, most credentialed expert in the United States or the world. We might be able to do that. I think we arguably got the best global economist on the show already when we interviewed Richard Duncan in Asia. Today we had Terry Kerr, and there is no better turnkey real estate provider. Right from the beginning of GRE Episode 1, I said that I'm glad you're listening, but you're not here for me, you're here for you. So give us some feedback and tell us how we can help you. For my developer, John Collins, designer, Marcus Whelan, show producer, Vidran Jampo, I am your host, Keith Weinhold. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to the Get Rich Education podcast, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.